Yo, what's up, everybody? It's Bishop AJ, Pastor Tony, Pastor Dan from Elevation Church. We're going to give y'all a second to jump on for this amazing conversation. If y'all would please do us a favor, say what's up in the comment section. Say, hey, share this out. This is going to be a dope conversation. Not going to be long, though. So don't procrastinate into coming into church today. We got stuff to do. But we definitely wanted to take some time and have this conversation. Say what's up. Hey, Jennifer, it's good to see you in the comments. Yo, what's up, everybody? Good to see you. Listen, I'm excited for this conversation today because it's going to be organic. It's going to be a conversation between brothers and friends and pastors in the local St. Louis community. And then we also even have an event that's coming up that we want you guys to just be aware of. And even if you want to help us out and support and volunteer, we'll give you more information about that as well. Good morning. Hey, it's 12 o'clock now, Kai. Ooh. He said good morning. Hey, but I do it every single Sunday. Every single Sunday, I start off by saying good morning. Good morning, everybody in the comments. And my service starts at 12:30. It's like, and then I go crazy when people like on stage and they get up and they say good morning. And it's like, yo, fam, it's 12:30. Right, say good afternoon. But I do the same thing. So hypocritical.
You all get to sleep in, man. It's right. Like, you must be nice.
Hey, but after this situation, let me tell y'all something. Ain't no more sleeping in after this one. We getting it in. What's up to you guys in the comments? Michelle DeCento, good to see you. Love you. Kai, good afternoon. Yo, so please, we're going to be having just a candid conversation today. If y'all will please do us a favor, share this out on your timeline, share it in groups, share it where this needs to be heard, especially if you're in the St. Louis community and even around the world. I think this is going to be a great conversation. So that we don't hold up the time today, I'm going to let these two fine-looking gentlemen introduce themselves to you. You know what I'm saying? And tell you guys who they are and where they are from. Feel free to jump in, guys.
All right. Well, Pastor Tony Gilmore here with the St. Louis Dream Center. Man, just love our city, born and raised here, and excited about what God's going to do through this panel today.
Yeah.
Well, I'm Daniel Taylor, and I'm the pastor at Elevation Church here in St. Louis as well. I am not in the city. I'm just right outside of the city in a place called Fenton, Missouri, you know. And so excited to be on the conversation or on the call, and excited to be with my friends and brothers. It's gonna be good.
It's gonna be a great conversation. Yo, thank you guys for sharing. I'm gonna do something really quick before we start. Pastors, if y'all want to do it, share it out. Share it. Because I start talking and then I always forget to share. Then I always share it at the end. So I'm gonna share it out to my page now.
Okay.
I'm on it.
We are going to get it cracking. So listen, y'all know this is a super interesting time in our world. We are dealing with a lot of situations that, I mean, it started through a pandemic. It started through, all of us having to adjust because a pandemic really just, it hit us out of nowhere. And we've all, as pastors, have had to make adjustments, and kudos and celebration to you guys for the adjustments that you've made. That people don't realize that although it may look easy to just stand in front of a camera, it actually is harder to stand in front of a camera than it is to stand in front of people.
Cameras don't, amen.
That's right. And you can't.
Chairs, that's all there is.
Facts. And you can't feel like you can't really feel people. So sometimes, there's another place that you would go with the conversation or even with the text if you had that people spirit in the room. But because you don't have that, you just kind of you got to know what you're talking about.
Yep.
This isn't the time where you can fluff. Like you can't fluff the conversation. You got to really know what you're talking about. And I guess this is the time where we've had to use all of our hermeneutic training and sermon prep and all that nonsense.
Yes, seminary training.
Yes,
it gives you greater respect for all the people that are on the television.
Yeah,
and I mean, it's not easy.
That's right.
It's not. And I've had to relearn and retrain and figure out things that I didn't even know before, and
Yeah.
it's been nutty.
Yeah. It's
But it's been good. It makes us better.
yes.
It
That's
makes
it.
us stronger.
That's right. Yo, this is an interesting time. And then, you know, right after we thought we were getting ready to come back outside and play, right after we thought all the restrictions were getting ready to be lifted and we were getting ready to come back outside, and, you know, some churches planning to reopen and some still waiting to, you know, do their services online. But we thought we were getting ready to go out and play, and boom, all kind of racial situations happen. We see a video of a man, George Floyd, being killed on camera with a police officer having his knee on the man's neck for some 8 to 12 minutes, you know, literally watching a man asphyxiate on camera. And this is completely turned into a whole different dynamic in our world, because now we are forced to have these kind of critical conversations about what racism looks like and systemic racism, and then also how that looks particularly for the church community, and us really ministering to our people to really get us all on the same page. So we've been having conversations about what that looks like. And the thing that I want to say as the premise of this conversation, we've had these conversations as friends first. Because we wanted to make sure that we were all good in our understanding as friends. And then we've graduated the conversation to what does it look like as pastors in this conversation. And then we've bridged the conversation to now what does it look like as partners. So I want you all to know that this has been a progressive conversation that we've had. I can say with Pastor Daniel, I asked him some flat out Black people questions like, yo, where do you stand on this? Where do you stand on that? And it wasn't that I was going to cancel him, because I don't believe in the cancel culture either. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't believe in the cancel culture either. But I knew that that's where the relationship was going to need either some adjustment, some work, or some education, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, so we started having those candid conversations. Pastor Tony and I had an opportunity to be a part of another conversation a week or so ago at Kingdom Church here, where that was a live conversation with Pastor Ryan Hart that asked us to basically instruct and train and talk to his white congregation about what it looks like to be Black men in America. So it was a great conversation as well. And we got an opportunity to really share and to deal with the narrative there too. So we're coming live today to have this candid conversation. Wanted to set the framework so that you all can know that we're not coming as enemies. It might get tense, you know, because we all have different worldviews, but the reality is we truly love each other. So anybody got any questions, comments, what y'all think? And if you haven't, type those in the comments and we'll make sure that we're watching those as well. So let's do it. What is racism? What's racism? Let's start with a foundation. What does, Pastor Tony, what does racism mean to you? And then Pastor Daniel, what does racism mean to you?
You know, I love the definition that I heard from a brother named Darius a few days ago. He said that racism is the conscious or unconscious thought of supremacy over one race over another. And when I heard that, it really did something to me, because he gave me a language, because it's conscious and subconscious. And we often think that, okay, you know, I'm not hurting anybody. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not the cop with my knee on somebody's neck. But to tell you the truth, there is an unconscious way to be racist that operates in our society that many people don't even understand they operate in. And so anytime one race says that they're better than another in whatever way they express it, it's racism.
Wow. That's a major definition.
Yeah, blew my mind.
I mean, I think I would agree with that. I think sometimes race is one of those things that it's like when we talk about sins of omission and sins of commission. There are things racism can be happening whether I'm acting in it or not. You know, that even my passivity around it can be a form of sin.
Yeah.
And so I think the definition that you gave was really good because both of those things can be happening at the same time. I mean, I know people that would not consider themselves a racist
Yeah.
simply because they're not necessarily actively oppressing someone, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have some things going on in terms of their quote social narrative that has informed their life and their experience of life that isn't affecting them on a daily basis, or how they see people, or even the things they think about people.
Yeah.
I love the way that Pastor Miles McPherson says that he does such a great job of talking about that us versus them mentality, and even that, where I set up an us versus them mentality, is exactly what you're talking about, is where I can be creating distance between the children of God, God's creation, by creating that in my head. And honestly, that's exactly what the devil wants.
Sure.
Totally.
Well, I think that, we've been talking about a lot of this, and I know this can be exhausting, right? One of the things that I have been personally fighting is just the exhaustion of the conversation itself.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's really happening a lot on a lot of panels, a lot of conversations, but we realize that this isn't a new problem.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that the reason why we're having this conversation is because I think we all feel like something's different with this one.
Yeah.
Like this is not just is going to cycle out of the news, and then we just kind of go back and snap back to our regular, experiences and way of doing life until another black man lays in the streets. Yeah. I really feel like that this one has stirred, like it's peaked. This is peaked, and it's now time for us to really have real conversations about this, so that people can understand that racism is built in hate, and it is also built in supremacy, an idea that genetically a race is better than another race. Yeah. And we're trying to help people understand that our addressing this. So I want you all that are watching this, that our addressing this is not necessarily, to stir the pot, because people think we shouldn't talk about this, right? So if you're talking about this, then they think that you're just stirring the pot. You're not walking in love. You need to forgive. And I keep trying to get people to understand the reality of the scripture says, Jesus says, hey, if somebody slaps you in the cheek, he says, turn the other cheek, but he never said, turn your back. Mm-hmm. So he says, there's a perspective that you can see what happens from, right? But he did not say, turn your back and run from it. You do have to address it. Yeah. And that's what we're attempting to do today, is as spiritual leaders and as black men and a white man that's a friend of ours, to really try to bring some context to this conversation. So with that being said, Pastor Daniel, you know what? You're white. Okay. Just didn't know if you noticed it, but you're a white man. All right. So I know you are hearing, you're catching it. I'm going to be honest. You are catching it. Like every time you probably watch the news, you are hearing us saying, look, white people, y'all gonna have to get y'all life together. White pastors, y'all gonna have to say something. White, if you're evangelical, I'm not saying that you are not, but if you are evangelical, we're handing you the business. Like, this is the time where blacks are really calling white people, white men to the table to really either see what side of the fence that they're on. Pastor Daniel, I want to give you an opportunity to maybe share your heart about where you stand with this and what's your whole heart behind all of this racism and injustice that's going on right now.
Yeah, no, I see that as well. And honestly, I'm actually glad that my black brothers and sisters are giving me or like holding my feet to the fire in some ways. I think it's important because at the end of the day, I mean, we're in this together. And we're building the kingdom together. And I think it's a good thing that black and white pastors are having these conversations. And what's actually exciting to me is what I'm seeing is that white pastors who are being thoughtful, are
that's a good way to put it.
allowing black pastors to really take the lead on a lot of this, because the truth is we don't know. I mean, I don't know what it's like to live in America and experience life the way you guys have experienced life. I mean, I can tell you this 100%. I have never in my life, as far as I know, been treated differently because of the color of my skin.
Wow.
I mean, I just haven't. I can't think of a time in my life. And I know when I talk with you or when I talk with other brothers and sisters, that is not their experience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Their experience of America is very different than mine.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that we have to see, is that there is a problem here. And it's so good, I think. I hate, because see, that's what God does. He takes bad things and he does good things with them. He has an amazing ability to take, the ashes and turn them into something beautiful, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you see this situation, this horrible situation with George Floyd, and it was a powder keg that I think has galvanized the church, I hope, to begin to address these things, not just in tokens, but really have the conversations and really begin to work together on these issues. And the thing is that's always been frustrating to me is how the enemy will polarize us around politics. It'll polarize us around all the things you can come up with, like whether it's liberationism or evangelicalism, white versus black, whatever it is. And the next thing you know is we got our eye off the ball.
Yeah.
Is that we're trying to address racism, and that is something that Christians should be about. That's something that we as the church should be in agreement on. We can disagree about a lot of things, but we can't disagree on the fact that God created us all human beings together.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those things that, and I hate the fact that we live in a world that, it just breaks my heart that we live in a world that somehow we're dividing over the fact that the pigment in our skin is different.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
we're human beings.
Yeah.
Like, God made us. We're brothers and sisters. And it's crazy to me that we have systems, we have anything in this world that somehow is dividing us. And it's like, based on the fact that somebody got a little more melanoma in their skin when they were in their mama's womb.
Right.
It makes no sense to me. So
Yeah.
I just say I'm glad that you guys are holding people's feet to the fire. I think we've got to pivot at some point, because we can't mourn forever.
Yeah.
And we've got to pivot at some point and take the frustration, the anger, all the things, and move it towards, I think, some real change.
Yes.
In our country. So,
Pastor Tony, what
I
you
don't know
think?
if that helps.
It does, man.
And in this whole fight, because I see it as, I think there was a word that was used that we've lost sight of, which is kingdom. This is a kingdom fight. This isn't, we're in this world, but not of this world. And being a part of God's kingdom, there is a moment in the book of Revelations where it says every tongue, every creed, every color will stand before the throne of God worshiping him. And I tell people, I don't want to wait till I get to heaven to practice that. I want to practice it right now while I'm on the earth. But there is a fight that we must fight together to get there to practice it. And in this thought of being able to, I think there has to be a funeral that we all attend.
Okay.
There has to be a funeral and a death to the way things were and a new life to where God wants to take us. But we have to go through the stages of grief to get there. We have to go through those stages and then get to the place where we can get through the anger stage and all of that to get to the place where it's like, okay, now let's move forward. And this is what I'm nervous about, being honest. There are catalysts and there are carriers. And I believe right now we have a bunch of catalysts. I believe that a lot of catalysts are protesting, about a lot of people that, while this is hot in the news, they're engaged in the fight. I need some carriers. I need some carriers that say, after it gets off the first 5 minutes of the news, after CNN stops playing it, that we are in this fight to say, hey, what am I going to do to affect education for those that are underprivileged? What am I going to do to impact the job rate for those that are of brown pigment? What role can my church play in helping advance and equalize the playing field so that everybody, no matter where they came from or what they come from, has equal opportunity to be what God created them to be? And I'm concerned that we become such a media-driven society that we simply jump on what media is on. I need some carriers that are listening to me right now that says, even after CNN and Fox are done making this their news report, that we have to stay in the fight and help equalize the playing field.
Jeez. Yo, y'all hear these guys? Y'all need to make sure y'all are sharing, because they're really, really, really speaking the truth. Somebody put a question in the comments, and I just think it's just cool to just acknowledge it, and let's jump on it. Pastor Davis asked, well, the question now is, how do we put our words into actions? The talk and the panel discussions are only the beginning. So we, of course, have had these kind of conversations, but what do you all, in your opinion, do you think are some measurable results, some action steps that can be taken to actually dealing with this problem of racism and injustice in our communities?
I'm going to let Pastor Daniel go, because I know on this one I can go, man. But yeah. So.
Yo, and Pastor Daniel, here's the cool thing about this too, because, okay, there is a thought, there is a philosophy that white people have to address racism, because here's the problem that I've had. The problem that I've had is when I speak out against racism, it sounds like I'm an angry black man or I'm defensive, right? So it sounds like it's reactionary responses to the injustice that are done against my community. But sometimes they're unsubjective, because a lot of the racism that happens can be done in slick and in sly comments, remarks, redlining. I mean, gentrification. There are so many ways that racism can be expressed in our community that we can't say physically, before I'm punched in the face or a knee is put on my neck, right? Before that happens, a million other things happen.
Yeah.
So my question is, like, as a white man, what do you think are some solutions that your community could help partner or instill into society that brings about a dealing with racism? I think it's a fair question. Let's get him back set.
Yeah. Are you guys hearing me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
You're good.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure. So I think Bishop, you and I for a long time have been friends, and I personally think one of the ways we address the problems is we have to actually have friends that are not the same color as me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't say that I'm a kingdom person and that I'm committed to building the kingdom of God and not have any people in my life that don't, or that everybody looks like me, talks like me, acts like me, had the same experience of life. And I think that's the thing that I think we got to start with. We got to start with friendship. We got to start with having people in our home. We got to start with having conversations. And I know people get frustrated when I say that, because and I know that's the long way around. That's
True.
not easy to do. That takes time.
Yeah.
and it's not instantaneous. And we live in a world that's all about instantaneous.
Yeah.
And it just takes time to build friendships with people. But I can tell you this, once those friendships are built, it really can lead to some major impact.
Yeah.
Because now what you're doing is you're exponentially increasing your spheres of influence. I mean, you are exponentially adding to the kingdom pot, so to speak. And I think you're really able to make a greater difference, even though it takes a little bit longer to get to. So I think that's one of the first things I would say. And I know that that's not always satisfying for people because it's not a policy or it's not this. But you guys know this. Legislation is important, but it ain't going to change the human heart.
No. Yeah.
Only Jesus can change the human heart, as far as I'm concerned.
Yep.
And you know, I can force people to do things, but that doesn't mean I'm changing anything. It might just be going underground.
Yep.
Yes.
So I mean, that's one thing I would say. I love some of the stuff that's coming out right now about just how we look at one another, how we see each other, how we think about, like, even asking the question, like, I'd challenge my white brothers and sisters is, have they asked anybody of color how they're experiencing this situation?
Mm-hmm.
Like, just ask that question. How are you experiencing it?
Yeah.
How do you feel? What do you think? And I think there's so much learning that can come from that is going to help us in the long run. If we don't have the conversations, if we don't listen, if we don't talk to each other and get that kind of stuff going on, we're not going to be able to sustain change. Like as you said, Pastor Tony, catalysts and carriers. We're not going to have a lot of carriers if we don't get some of that stuff done, because I think that's how you get it done.
Yeah.
Because, guys, I'm really down on politics right now. I don't know about y'all. I'm down on politics.
Don't get us started.
I'm a little down on this.
But y'all know I have a hard time biting my tongue. So.
But
don't get them started. Don't get them started.
I'm trying not to. I'm trying not to.
Stay to racism. Stay on racism.
I just don't. I'll be honest with you. I don't think most of these people care about what's going on.
Yeah.
I think they care. I think they care about what they care about. They care about power.
Yeah.
They care about their own thing, their own agenda, and quite frankly, I think anytime the church gets in bed with the government or politics, we lose.
Yeah.
Because the church isn't about power.
Mm-hmm.
The church is about love. The church is about humility. The church is about caring for people. And again, I get that those are mechanisms, but man, we got to understand that we're going to lose our soul if we let the government lead this. If we let, this has to be the church leading. We got to get to the human heart if we want to deal with racism.
Yeah.
And so I think pastors and leaders have to really step on that and jump on that. So I don't know, maybe that's useful.
No, it's great. I'll be honest. When this all happened, Pastor Daniel and I had a very strong conversation, just so for you all that are watching online. I asked him some political questions. I said, do you care about babies more than you do black men lying in the streets? Did I not ask you that just like that?
Yeah.
I asked him that straight out. I said, because I needed to understand where you were philosophically. Because if I can understand where you are philosophically, because I know the bond that we've built over years, but I think that this actually brought a lot to the boiling point to say, look, I preach for you. You preach for me. We've worked together. We've served together. We've done all kind of stuff. But with this situation, I need to know as a white man, white pastor, have we come to the end of the road? Okay.
Boys
Like,
and men.
straight up. Like, and that's a good question. You said, look, from boys to men, because this is a man conversation.
Yeah.
Like, yo, like, where you at,
Yeah.
fam? Because I need to make sure that even in our partnerships and even that we work together, that y'all, I've been very honest about dealing with white guilt and what that, how that translates into some of the opportunities and service opportunities and things like that that happen in Black communities, because oftentimes it's dealt in hyper morality, not necessarily caring about Black culture. You know, so we were having those conversations. So I want you guys that are watching that this is not a fluff, right? So this is not a fluff conversation that we're having between the three of us about, I guess, our pie in the sky desires of utopia in the earth. No, these are actually real relationships that between us three, we've really had to really come to terms with how we think and how we feel. We just happen to be pastors.
Yeah.
But it's a real thing that we have really talked about. Like, what is the solution to this? And it started with our interpersonal relationships. So I think what Pastor Daniel said is correct, that maybe you all need to start challenging some of your interpersonal relationships, having those questions, asking those tough questions, educating each other so that you can know who you're linking arms with and doing life with.
Yeah.
So, Pastor Tony, what you think?
And, you know, I think that there is a place where we have to get to where it's not about our talent, where it's not about our ability, where it's not about what we give to a ministry or an organization that can help make your place better. Mm-hmm. It's got to be a genuine place of the character of a person being on display that says, I want this person a part of my world because of them, not because of what they can do for me or offer to me. Because I think for many African Americans, that's the place of the feeling used, not genuine, even down to the fact of, help. The phrase white privilege has been thrown around quite a bit, and most people get offended by it because they don't really understand what it means. But I had a conversation with my kids. My kids are all older, and we begin to talk about privilege. And my daughter began to say, she's like, Dad, I got privileges. And I'm like, unpack that to me. And she's like, well, I have advantages that kids don't have, especially in the Dream Center world that we operate and serve. And as she began to unpack that, we begin to look at pastoral privilege. Yes. When I walk into a room, when my kids walk into a Dream Center room, they get treated a certain way because they're a PK, they're a pastor's kid. Yeah. And I remember telling my kids that, and I would frustrate them because when they were in the elementary ministry, they would win gift cards. And I'd say, give it back or give it to another kid. And I'm like, Dad, I won the card. Why can't I have it? I was like, because I can go get you a card tomorrow. And then there are some people that are going to let you win because you're my kid and they want to be in favor. So we're going to take the privilege that you've been given and help somebody else that doesn't have the same privilege that you have. And so I think when we talk about white privilege, it's that same thought process. And it's like, okay, there are certain people that are behind the race that with African Americans in our history, having to come to the plate later, reading later, being able to be educated later. It's like being in a race where somebody's been given a 200-meter head start and saying, okay, now catch up. There has to be things in place that help catch up so that we can all be on the same path. And a lot of times when we look at the privileged side of this, that's a real thing in our society. If, some of my white brothers and sisters can look, it's like finding ways to help even the playing field. And that's like I taught my kids their privilege. I'm sorry, say it again.
So good, Pastor. And I was just saying that's so good, but I think as Christians, we love being blessed. We talk about being blessed.
Yeah.
And the reality is that believers in Jesus Christ, we are privileged.
Yeah.
God privileged us with the blessings of God.
Yep.
And so we walk around, I'm blessed. I'm
Yeah.
privileged in Jesus. Like, we don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, we attach it to a skin color, and that's when people get a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And a lot of it comes out of, like, you talk about white guilt or whatever, but I think a lot of it is that people just feel like they're like, well, I didn't do that. I didn't have, I didn't cause this. But the problem isn't so much about whether someone did something or didn't do something.
Yeah.
It's just recognizing that it's really recognizing that if you're really honest and you look around our society, you cannot, I think, in good conscience, come to the conclusion that some people don't have advantage and some people do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Whether like Pastor McPherson says, we live in a right-handed world.
Yeah.
And so all you lefties out there are in trouble because you're in a right privileged world.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
A right privileged world. And he has such a beautiful way of is that this right privilege, right?
Yeah.
This right privilege is, as a believer in Jesus Christ, it's my job to make sure the lefties
Yes.
get the same opportunity that I have.
That's it.
And as a believer in Jesus Christ, that is the way that we should see this situation, not necessarily from white and black and this and that. We just got to see that it's wrong.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a problem here.
Yes.
And as believers in Jesus Christ, anytime we see wrong, we got to do something about it.
Yeah.
Right.
That's it. And
So-
go ahead.
No, go ahead, Pastor Tony. You good?
And that's why, like, I taught my kids that with the privileges you've been given, they're not for you. They're not for you alone. They're for you to take what has been given to you and help make someone else's life better that doesn't have the same advantages or privileges that you have. And honestly, that's kingdom.
Yes.
Like, when we get there, that's kingdom.
So in the last 5 minutes of our time, just so y'all
Good.
know, I want y'all to put this on your calendars. We're coming back next Tuesday because we didn't want this just to be a quote unquote, oh, let's just have a conversation and then move on about it. This is not an exhaustive conversation for somebody that may think, y'all just scratched the surface. This is a scratch and sniff today.
Yeah.
But definitely want to make sure that you put this on your calendar for next Tuesday at 12 o'clock as we continue in the conversation.
Yeah.
We're also going to be announcing an event at the end of this conversation today, so stay tuned to that. But in our closing moments of today's conversation, I think that one of the things, as we're talking about racism, I just want to kind of turn a page and just kind of bring this into the concept of the church. One of the things that I appreciate about Pastor Daniel, and I want to be able to say this publicly, is that he's not been afraid to deal with racism from public platforms and even from his pulpit. So Elevation Church, I would have to give him a black stamp of approval.
I give it up.
All right. And I think that sometimes this needs to be said because we have some white brothers and sisters that you're really seeing a lot of their true colors. Now, like I told you, I'm not a cancel guy. Like I don't participate in cancel culture. Because if that was the case, I would have been canceled 1,000 times over, right? And we got a long life to live. So if we cancel people now, I'm done. I'm just closing down the laptop. Thanks, okay? Real talk. Hey, Pastor Daniel, they loving you. They're giving you all kind of kudos in the comments today. If you don't see it, they're saying, yo, I like you, Pastor Daniel. Ding, Pastor Daniel for the win. But because you have been vocal in using your influence, that's why I say I rock with you. And I appreciate the fact that you are being an example and the fact that even in the conversations we've had in private, if you don't understand something, you pretty cool with me saying, yo, Pastor Dan, that ain't it, dog. Like, don't. So I just want Elevation, to understand that y'all do have a leader that is at least in relationship and also education, so
Yeah.
that he can, as a white man, as y'all see, good looking dude, got his hair cut, but his live today too.
I just, hey, I love you guys. I love that I can.
He good looking dude. But I just also want to make sure that your people understand. Like we get it and we rock with you.
Yeah.
So, but this is what I want to say, and let's just talk about this, and we can get to the 45-minute mark. How do you all feel as pastors about addressing racism, like from the pulpit and from social media? Like, what's your thoughts? Like, are you scared to talk about it? Is it tense to talk about? Are there things that you're kind of stepping around like a landmine as it deals with relationship or racism? Are you afraid to offend white people that are in your church? Are you afraid to incite violence amongst black people in your church? Like, how have you as a pastor processed the fact that now you have to speak on this, and what has that impact been like on you and your ministry?
I think for me, like the first week, I'm so glad I wasn't preaching. I'm so glad that first week that we already had something set up where somebody else was preaching, because my message, my heart wasn't developed enough to preach the message that God's been telling me to preach. And honestly speaking, I'm not afraid of offending white or black with it, because it's kingdom. And it's like, it's the kingdom of God. And if you're offended, Jesus was offensive with the messages that he preached because it was countercultural. And I simply believe that the word of God says the fear of man brings a snare, but he that trusts in God is kept safe. And that's what I've operated in, leading our church and everybody on my social media platforms towards a kingdom mindset where we attack this whole thing together as God's family.
Yeah. That's what's up. Pastor Dan, what you think?
I so agree. I'll be honest with you. I'm not afraid at all. And the reason is because, man, I know when I'm in line with the scripture.
Yep.
I can speak. If I'm saying things that are outside of the word of God and it's just my opinion, then I'm in trouble. That's when you can get in trouble. But I think for me, the Bible is so clear on some of these matters. And so being able to speak into it for me is an honor, because I know that I get to stand with brothers and sisters around this world that are struggling, and I get to be able to say that. But here's the thing, man. I'm not willing to do much of it on social media, though.
Okay.
Because I can tell you this, if I can't control the conversation, if I can't actually my words be used properly, because I just, with social media, guys, I get it, and I know it's a platform and we all use it, but all I see is people hurting each other with their words and taking things out of context and twisting things. And so the one thing I can control as a pastor is what is said in my pulpit. And if I'm going to say something, that's where I'm going to say it. And I'm going to say it strong and true, but I'm always going to be careful with speaking too much on Facebook or social media, because I think it just creates division. Because what happens is you might say something that offends all this group and that group and this other group, and next thing you know, you don't have a voice to speak into some of those groups. And for me, I want to speak into all the groups. And so I got to be real careful with that too. But I think we have to say things. We have to stand up. We have to call things what they are, because that's what the Bible does. And we just got to be honest.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this: if my church ain't okay with that, or if people leave my church, then sorry, there it is.
Y'all heard it.
And I love my people. I love my people, but I'm going to give them the word, and that's one thing they can trust about their pastor.
Yep.
is I'm an equal opportunity offender. You know what I'm saying? Come on.
All right. Come on, Pastor Daniel. That's good. Well, y'all, this has been a great conversation. We are literally at the 45-minute mark. So I think that we're going to leave this conversation here. For you guys that are watching the replay, feel free to go back and start from the beginning. But like I said, this is a part one. We're going to continue with this conversation next Tuesday at 12 p.m. These are some very, very, very busy and distinguished gentlemen that I'm excited to be able to do life with and ministry with. We are also partnering. So part of our solution to dealing with the systemic issue that we know is a problem in the St. Louis community is a three-way partnership by which the St. Louis Dream Center, Elevation Church, and the Equation Church are partnering to give away 300 food boxes and PPE items and whatever's going to come as a result of all we're working on to our community on the last Saturday of this month. I think that's June the 27th.
Yeah.
Okay, did I get it right? All right, cool. I don't want, the people to come get me and be like, you keep saying the wrong date. So on June the 27th from 9 to 12. So people, I know there are a lot of people asking, like, what can they do? I mean, first of all, we can always use hands on deck. Like, we need as many hands on deck as possible to truly help us with the heavy lifting, tables, chairs, all that stuff. We are mobilizing our teams and churches to work together to actually serve our community by giving boxes and praying for people and getting the word out. So maybe you want to be part of the street team and actually help us canvass the neighborhood and get the word out. The best way to kind of keep up with what's going on is to follow the St. Louis Dream Center, follow Elevation Church, follow the Equation Church, and you can also maybe donate to one of these ministries, and we'll make sure that you get it. If you want to be a part of that day, email the 411. Can somebody type it in the comments for me? Like somebody's watching. The 411 at equationchurch.com. Again, that is the 411 at equationchurch.com if you want to volunteer and be a part of that day. But pastors, appreciate the conversation today.
Yeah, man.
It's been epic. Any closing words that y'all want to add before we let these people go?
Last thing I got is, man, let's do this thing together.
Yes.
Let's change the narrative together. And when the church does it, the world will get it.
Ooh.
That's right. That's right.
That's right. All right, good people. It has been a joy. We look forward to seeing you all next Tuesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. Until then, my friends,
God bless.
let's change the world. Bye, y'all.
Bye.